Conference, we're at our best when we work together. That is what we did when we stopped the Tories in their tracks last year. Just look at their manifesto. If you can find a library they haven't closed, you'll find it under political fiction. And if you read now what they claim they do then, you'll find more self-serving delusion than Donald Trump's Twitter feed. Since then, our opposition, under Jeremy Corbyn, has lit a bonfire of the vanity project. The Tories are in retreat on every issue, from free schools to free school meals, which was saved by the campaigning of so many in this room and outside of it. Just last week, we forced them to give up a plan to spend £20 million on taxis to chauffeur a few hundred individual pupils up to 30 miles a day to get to their nearest grammar school. And while at the same time cutting transport for disabled children to get to their local school. And what did they do with the money? Not reinvest it, but to return it to the Treasury. This is when they have broken promise after promise to properly fund our schools. If there was an Ofsted inspection for politics, the Tories would fail their inspection and be forced to convert to a Labour government. And Conference, I'll tell you what that Labour government will do. Our National Education Service will not only reverse the cuts, but tackle the inefficiency of the Tory school system and take power from the corporations and hand it back to communities. Conference will start immediately by ending the Tories' academy and free schools programmes. They neither improve standards nor empower staff or parents. Instead, they've been shut out and cut out by Tory ministers in Whitehall. Like the schools minister in the Lords, who has his own academy chain but won't say how he deals with the conflict of interest. An unelected minister literally refusing to be transparent about his own transparency policy. If only he was as accountable to us as he wants teachers to be to him. And Conference, it's the same for our councils. The Tories talk about devolution, but they want to hand down the blame and not the budget. Councillors are left with the responsibility for school places without the power to create them. So we will allow them to build schools, create new places and take back control of admissions from academy trusts. We'll also tackle the problem of trusts that fail, leaving schools stranded outside the system. Imagine being in an organisation facing a crisis but with no leadership or direction. You'd think Tory ministers would know that feeling. Yet that's what they're inflicting on ever-increasing numbers of our schools. So we'll allow academies to return to local authority control. We'll end the scandal of individuals and companies profiting from schools that they're involved in, stopping fat cat set pay for bosses and restoring fair pay for the staff. And Conference, We will use our time in government to bring all publicly funded schools back into mainstream public sector with a common rule book and under democratic control. Conference, on issues like the rising cost of school uniforms, parents have no say, while others profit. The Tories promise to empower people, but we know the reality. Not taking back control, but taking it away. And where parents and staff want to go further in launching and leading their own schools, our movement already has an answer. Cooperative schools, as part of the local schools family. Attacked by the Tories, under Labour, they will be part of John McDonnell's cooperative vision. Conference, these will be just one part of the most ambitious school building programme ever, delivered without the waste and inefficiency of free schools, and as we set out in the general election, backed by £8 billion of investment. And let me be clear, Conference, that if I have anything to do with it, not one brick will be laid by a company that doesn't pay its taxes or a builder who is falsely self-employed. The cost of free market failure is highest in the most important area of school spending, their staff. Years of real terms pay cuts, rising workloads, and a failure to plan the workforce has created a crisis in teacher recruitment and retention. The result is that private recruitment agencies rake in over £500 million of taxpayers' money every year in fees alone. Our money spent on profit and not pay. The Tories talk about public sector waste. Well, I'll tell you, there's no bigger waste in our education system than this. So, led by our Shadow Schools Minister, Mike Kane, we'll set out plans for a state-funded teacher supply service, fixing the failure of the free market. We will cut out the waste and stop the exploitation of agency workers. And Conference, too often, those who suffer the most from staff shortages are children with special educational needs and disabilities. So our National Education Service Charter, the result of thousands of submissions from members up and down the country, guarantees it will be truly inclusive. That is why our Shadow Children's Minister, Emma Lewell-Buck, will lead plans to stop those with special educational needs and disabilities from falling out of our schools system. And we will back it up with a record investment in modernising school buildings to make sure that they're accessible to all who could learn in them, providing an excellent education for the many and not the privileged few. And to achieve that, we must start before school. Nowhere is this Conservative government's failure starker than in early years, which makes the greatest impact on a child's life. They promise 30 hours of high-quality free childcare a week, but 1 in 7 families now pay more, and nearly 1 in 10 providers risk going bust. Even worse, the very families who need help the most are least likely to get it. That's why our Shadow Early Years Minister, Tracy Brabin, has led our plans for a new public service offering free education for all 2 to 4-year-olds and reinventing our state nurseries. A policy as radical as anything proposed by a Labour government in our history. But conference, I know from my own life that sometimes people need a second chance later in life. So we'll provide not just free higher education, but free further education. And we'll ask experts from across the field to join our Lifelong Learning Commission, led by our Shadow Minister Gordon Marsden, because we're not afraid to hear from experts. In fact, we welcome it. We'll do the same when we revise assessment and the curriculum. That includes making sure that people know how to use their rights, including joining a trade union, which changed my life. Conference, after last year's election, there were even some Tories who wanted socialism on the curriculum too. They thought that if they taught young people the history of communism, they wouldn't vote Labour. I have to tell them, young people didn't turn to us because they don't know their history, but because they do know their future. They don't need re-education. They need free education. Because, conference, a society where education is free is a society where people are free. Conference, we heard earlier today from our Shadow Chancellor how a Labour government will redistribute wealth, and our National Education Service will play its part. But it's also about redistributing power. Because poverty isn't just about being penniless. It's also about being powerless. Powerless compared to your employer, your landlord, big business, and even the welfare system created to support you, but which the Tories have turned against you. So our National Education Service isn't just about educating, it's about empowering, allowing people to take control over their own lives. And that must be what we do in politics too. To make it clear to people, as Jeremy said, you don't have to take what you're given. And, conference, what has the Tories given us? 1 million fewer adult learners. 1,000 Sure Start centres lost. £1 billion cut from children's services. State-maintained nurseries fearing for their future. Children going hungry. Cuts targeted at the very people who need our support the most. In the run-up to the next budget, our task is to lead parents, teachers, trade unions and communities in demanding better and make clear that we offer better. Our National Education Service. In the words of the anthem we'll sing this week, a banner bright and a simple plain of human right and human gain. That is education under a Labour government. Education under a Labour government a human right for human gain. Conference, we have already changed the political direction of this country. Together, we have fought austerity. Now, conference, let's end it.